Hi, welcome to class 2. Actually, it says class 1 on it, but it's class 2. Increasing income from your chart, which is the second lesson. I'm Barry Rosen again, and we're going to go into. I've developed a lot of new material, so hopefully some of you had time to listen to the material on Arudhas and at least read the PowerPoints. Arudha, what's amazing for me is that when you learn introductory Vedic astrology, the real secrets into kind of like, making good predictions and understanding things is just not revealed. And this whole thing about income, I mean, it's just, it's, you can see so much more in the Arudhas. And see, when people want to take a class about money, they're dealing with the most material level of existence. And on some level that's Maya, but on some level it's the most material level of existence. And it's, the Rashi chart may show how we feel about something, but the Arudhas actually show what manifests in our life. And so that's why we have to study them for looking at income and savings and, what kind of cars we have and things like that. And it's quite fascinating. Okay, so we'll start with some chanting, and if you want, you can slip off your shoes. Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Vakritunda Mahakaya, Surya Koti Samaprabha, Nirvigyam Kurame Deva, Sarvakareshi Sarvada, Jnanamulam Guru Murti, Pujamulam Guru Padam, Mantramulam Guru Vakyam, Mokshamulam Guru Kripa, Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvinavatitamasttu Madhvishai Vahai, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Om Aditaye Somaye Mangulai Buddhaye Cha Guru Shukrashini Vishcha, Rahave Ketave Namaha. Honoring the great ones, Lord Krishna, Goddess Saraswati, Vedavyasa, Holy Tradition Masters going back to Brahmananda Saraswati, part of my spiritual tradition. Many great teachers that I've studied with, and name a few. So Lavina's here this week from Sedona, and it's good to have you, Lavina. Tony's here from Malaysia. Christopher's here from Maui. Chalapati is not here yet. There was some confusion about the time and GoToWebinar. We decided on 12 last week, and then the computer program didn't change it, and then I changed it the other day, but I don't know how many people caught it. Kathy, I don't know if Kathy's here or not. Yeah, Kathy's here and Jessica's here. Okay, Kathy, I'm gonna unmute you guys, Jessica. So I just unmuted you, Jessica. I just unmuted you, Kathy, so you can take control of your mics. Great. So Kathy's here, Kathy's here, Jessica's here, Leanne is not here yet, and Diana is not here. I hope she wasn't confused. You know, she always comes. So we'll see, hopefully, what happens. Okay. So we're on lesson 2. Some of this may bleed over into next week. Actually, these first 2 or 3 weeks of the class are kind of on income and career and kind of connecting them. And sometimes you can't always separate income from career, because how income comes is from what you do. So trying to kind of integrate a little bit of that more. And so I'm trying not to rush this material, so that's great. Okay, so trying to think. The Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference again is going to be virtual this year, and information at sedonavedicastrology.com. I'm not speaking this year. Okay, so let's move to today's material now. So there is a 4th edition of the slideshow, and I did just send it about a half hour ago. So definitely refer to that one. Now, again, no one needs to feel guilty. Again, I am not a punitive 4th grade teacher, but it does help me to know how much of the Arudha tapes and the Jaimini astrology stuff that you were able to listen to. I know for many of you it's new. Jaimini is just so important, and it's kind of everything is what I've kind of realized. And so I can't not bring it into the class because you get much better predictions from it. And so that's why I gave you a lot of homework to kind of catch up on it. Just, without feeling guilty, how many people, how much did you all get through? Just so I have some idea.
I'm very familiar, got through it. And then I just want to also mention that Tony wrote down just about a minute ago that he can't hear you. And I don't know if that's his personal computer or not.
Right. Tony, okay, so let's do it chat.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. I think there was something wrong with the earphone.
Okay, great. I'm glad you're back on.
Okay,
yeah. Okay, everybody can hear okay. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So just again, no guilt trips. Again, I won't send a note to your parents. And you don't need to feel, we're so used to feeling bad if we don't do our homework. It's not like that. I just need to know how much of the Arudha stuff and the Jaimini stuff you got through. And if you didn't, you can keep watching it because it's really core to a lot of stuff that we do. Anybody, any volunteers? Okay.
Barry, this is Christopher. I haven't gotten a chance to go through the videos. I just haven't gotten the technical piece of the Dropbox stuff and all that nonsense.
Okay. Do you need help downloading Dropbox, or I can't.
I just need the time to actually figure it out. Okay.
Sometimes I can send stuff from Google Drive and I can resend the PowerPoints to you, but
oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, Dropbox is just makes everything easier, and unfortunately I've been using it for 5 years, so I have everything stored there, so I'm just kind of stuck. But I understand when you get a new software program, this is like, how do I figure this out? My office manager might be able to help you, with it if there's a problem too. Okay, thank you for letting me know, Christopher. I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I managed to study the Arudhas.
Great.
And I think I went on to the Jaimini. Yeah.
Great.
But I'm still not too sure about the part where you have your movable signs and your fixed signs and the meaningful.
Yeah. It's like learning a new language, so you have to remember, like, your movable signs are, signs 1, 4, 7, and 10. So that's Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. And the signs are Taurus, which is easy to remember because it's so stubborn, and the sun, which is, the center of the sky, so it's fixed, and Scorpio, which I don't know why it's fixed. It's like really a swamp. And then Aquarius is fixed, which doesn't make sense to me. But, and the dual signs are always easy to remember. But, yeah, you have to remember how those Jaimini aspects are just, Parashara teaches them right in the beginning, but they're so important, and they're actually more important than the aspects that we generally learn in Parashara astrology with the trines from Jupiter and the squares from Mars. Those are important in transits, but okay. Anybody else? I know. Okay, great. Thank you for the feedback. Chalapati, go ahead.
Hi, Barry. It's Jessica. So I just have a question regarding the Gemini. For instance, if you have your Nadi Karaka is Mercury, let's say, and then you're going through that dasha, do you mix the two? Does that mean is there a link between,
Okay.
like
Yeah. So I have talked about this a little bit before. That's a really good question. Sometimes we do kind of Jaimini analysis using Jaimini rules, and we do Parashara analysis using Parashara rules. So if you were in a Virgo period or a Gemini period, then the GK, the 6, 8, and 12 energy would be, you know, really up. But you try not to mix the other two. If you're in a Mercury period, which is you're in Mercury subperiod, I guess, you're looking at the 3rd and the 6th houses for Aries more than the GK. But again, there's an overlap because the 6th house is, you know, also part of the GK. So do you see?
Yeah. So yes, but is there any indication of the GK meaning indication for this period?
Yeah, well,
Or let's say, okay, for instance, if it's a DK period, like you're going through, for instance, DK is Mars, you're going through the DK Mars dasha, then do you feel that has an indication of this is the theme of this dasha, like, you know?
yeah, I mean, I think you were in the Dasha class. I mean, Dashas get really complicated, and so stuff comes up all over the place. Like in your chart, I just brought it up. I don't want to get too complicated. You might have to
All
have
I was thinking about is if you actually mix the two, you know, and to look at.
you try not. The general rule is not to mix them, and you can use the rules now. For example, you're in a Cancer period now, and it's a long Cancer period. It's 12 years, and Mercury is aspecting Cancer in Jaimini astrology. There's a strong influence of Mercury in your Cancer period. You know, but because you're in a Rahu Mercury period, you would analyze that a little bit different because Rahu and Mercury have a 10, you know, a 10 relationship. I try not to mix them. Mark Boney kind of said, try not to mix them too much. But there's always overlap. The rule is you kind of try to calculate results from both using the rules differently, and then you see if you get the same results, and you should. But Parashara astrology sometimes is harder to predict things from. Anyway, we can have a sidebar on that too, but it's a good question. But yeah, that's a very good question. Okay. You know, so for those of you who Jaimini astrology is new to, just keep listening to the tapes. You know, and I have written materials also on it, but it's very important to study, and we'll go deeper with it. I'm sorry, I'm doing Paul McCartney's chart, Jessica. I tried to pull up your chart and I pulled up Paul McCartney's.
Yeah, I was like, why would I be in Jupiter dasha? I was just thinking, I'm just checking my own software right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. I pulled it down and it went to the second one. So okay.
Yeah, I was so happy that Rahu was over. I said, oh, maybe Rahu is over already.
Yeah, I do have some. Anyway, okay. Well, let's go back to the beginning. Okay. So so I'll try to go slowly here, and I stand on the shoulders of many great teachers, particularly Visti Larson, Sanjay Roth, and Arsim Rao helped me put together this material, and sometimes I'm using their examples. And again, my skill as a researcher and putting, you know, and clarifying things that are hard to read. If you buy any of these books, you know, you'll never figure out what they're trying to say. And my goal is always to make Jyotish translatable and easy. Okay, so last time we learned a little bit about Arudhas. We said Arudhas are the perception chart, but they're also about the manifest world. So, you know, people, you know, you may feel one way because your rising sign is Virgo, but if you have Jupiter in your Arudha lagna, people will see you're a great teacher and advisor, and they'll come to you for help. And it's very real. It's not an illusion. I mean, sometimes people talk about Arudhas as an illusion, but what they really mean is it's the Maya of the real world. And as I mentioned last time, if you go for a job interview and you have K2 conjunct the Arudha lagna, people don't see you or think that you have low self-esteem. And if you have Jupiter conjunct the Arudha lagna, people think that, oh my God, you're a really great person. So it's all about, but there's a reality in Arudha. So it's not like they're just perceptions. And I just wanted to clarify that. We'll go deeper with it now. I did teach quickly how to calculate the Arudhas, and hopefully, again, if you hadn't had time to study this, it's always important to know how to do it by hand. Sometimes the computer messes up, and particularly with Scorpio and Aquarius, because they have two ownerships. And so you have to kind of, sometimes one is stronger than the other, and sometimes it's complicated with the rules. Those of you, by the way, just try to keep your mics muted if you're not talking, or just be absolutely silent and make sure nobody in the house is running a vacuum cleaner. Okay, great. I kind of want to go into case studies, but the rules for calculating Arudhas are here, and you need to study them, and they're pretty simple. See, when I first learned Jaimini astrology, it was like a whole new language. It's like when you first study astrology and you kind of like, oh my God, what is this? And you have to spend some time memorizing it. And so just we'll continue with Arudhas for a couple weeks now. So if you didn't get a chance to memorize how to calculate them by hand, definitely spend some time with that. The rules are carefully laid out here, and I don't want to go over them again. Now, sometimes when you have dual ownership, as like with Scorpio and Aquarius, you have to find which one's stronger, and sometimes both of them manifest. And I'll show the example of my chart. In the program, sometimes, this way, computer programs are imperfect. Somehow. Okay, so now programs are kind of imperfect. Now I have it set to KN Rao settings, but I just know from experience that my Arudha lagna is Capricorn, and so the way this is calculated, again, just to give you an example from my chart. So Capricorn, Scorpio is co-owned by Mars or K2, and sometimes K2 can be stronger. Now, my Mars is strong, so KN Rao would say Mars in Aries is stronger. It has higher degrees than K2 at 8 degrees. So the Arudha lagna is Virgo. Now, that's again, I know myself too well that I know that's not true. But my K2 is conjunct Jupiter, and I have a stationary Jupiter, and it's very, very strong. And so when we count, so K2 is in the Lord of the chart for Scorpio is K2. K2 is 8 houses away. We count 8 from Gemini, and we get Capricorn. And I have Venus conjunct the Arudha lagna. So I'm keeping the K and Rao settings just because, but whenever I usually find that the exceptions work better with the other calculations. And it turns out 2 of the examples that I came up with are Scorpio rising, and the exceptions are needed. But I just wanted to point that out to you. And stuff is kind of advanced, and I'm just exposing it to you. And if you're feeling confused, it's okay. This is just, the beginning. You have to get exposed to it again and again until you get it. But and I went over your Arudha lagnas last week in class, and I think I got everybody if I had your chart. But sometimes the point is, as Simsa Rao was saying too, is that sometimes the Arudhas of both will manifest. So you have to kind of be aware when there's a dual Lord. Okay. Now I want to just give you show you a case study about Arudhas with Howard Dean. I don't know if some of you remember Howard Dean. He was chairman of the Democratic party for a while. In 2005, he ran for president, and in the early part of the campaign for presidential nominee, in the early part of the campaign, he was the front runner, and in fact, this is my chart. What is Okay, here's Howard Dean. He's also Scorpio rising. And in the early part of the campaign, he was kind of the front runner for the presidential nominee. If I remember correctly, he won the New Hampshire primary in 2005. And then, for those of you who are politically savvy and were kind of following it, people were interviewing him at the end of the victory, and he went into this kind of carnival barker tirade about, we're going to go on to Iowa, we're going to go on to so and he came off as this kind of it was such a parodied speech that he lost all respect in that one interview, and he faded. And then actually what really happened, he had overspent too much money on his to win the New Hampshire primary, and he ran out of money, and so he bowed out. But you can kind of see this when we look at his chart. Leanne, welcome. I need you to mute your mic so that there's no noise coming in.
Oh, I'm trying to. I finally got on. Yeah, where is the mute button? Here it is. Yeah,
okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So this is Howard Dean's chart. Now he's Scorpio rising. Notice how he has Sun in the first, and it's got Mars in its own sign. It's the Atmakara, and he's got a strong aspect from an exalted moon. Anybody want to share anything about this chart? I mean, this is a very interesting, powerful man. I mean, Mars in the first, Sun in the first, Jupiter in the second, good for money. What's the problem with this chart? I mean, even if we
What's the MU in the first house?
We'll ignore that. That's an advanced thing in Gemini astrology, and I have it set, but I don't ever use it anymore. But I should have taken it out.
Barry, the Atmakara is Gandanta, like extreme Gandanta.
Yeah. Okay. His Atmakara Mars is so. I mean, he has kind of he has key lessons to learn about what power, and there's a lot of kind of when you have the his ascendant lord actually is K2, and this is where we kind of run into this dual problem, and the rule is if Mars is in Scorpio, then K2 becomes the chart lord. And if K2 is in Scorpio, then Mars becomes the chart lord. But that's actually the first rule. So he's actually ruled by K2 in this chart. And K2 is in the 12th house with Mercury. And if you look closely in the D9 chart, what's wrong with Mercury?
It's debilitated, and
right.
It's so close to Mars. I mean, Mars might be a good planet for him, but my gosh, it's burning. I met Howard Dean when he was running for president. And I think the other problem, I hate to say it, is he was kind of short and he was extremely aggressive.
Right.
There was no smoothness about him like the other candidates.
Yeah, and look at that, Mars and Sun, two fire planets in the first house. Yeah, that is kind of overpowering. Sun in the first house, both those can mean too much ego. And I think, that famous speech that he did in 2005 after the New Hampshire primary, you could probably pull it up on YouTube. Everybody parodied it for months. He went on like, and we're gonna go to New Hampshire, and we're gonna go to Iowa, we're gonna win California, and he talked really fast, which is kind of this debilitated Mercury thing, but it was also just kind of diluted, kind of like that. And so it was kind of and he immediately kind of dropped, lost, he faded from view real quickly. And you can kind of see this in the chart. Now the correct Arudha lagna, again, this is not showing it, is actually Virgo. And that's because K2 is in the 12th house. We count 12 houses from K2. Virgo becomes the correct Arudha lagna. Again, it's doing the other calculation. And I just said there's always a problem with Scorpio and Aquarius. So his correct Arudha lagna is Virgo, and he's got debilitated Venus there, which is not great. And he's got Saturn in the 12th from the Arudha lagna, which is difficult. And we'll talk about that. I'm using this example to move, toward what we're doing. He also has he's got Mercury second from the Arudha lagna. Now we like to have benefic second from the Arudha lagna because it means having a lot of money. But K2, has a way of taking away money, as you know, in the second house too. So one of the things I'm trying to explain to you is that, I teach this in one of my basic classes, is that we get so kind of caught up in looking at charts from one perspective, like from the lagna, but we also have to look at the chart from the Arudha lagna, and we have to look at the D9 chart, and we have to look at the chart from the Dasha Lord. So there are so many things that we don't ever want to get caught up in thinking that our chart is exactly what we were at birth. Now he if I have his dashas right, he was in a he was actually in a Saturn Venus period. Sorry, he was in a Saturn K2 period during the election, during the New Hampshire primary, and Saturn K2, that combination isn't so great, as you can tell. And K2 has kind of a way of taking away, and he kind of faded from view in Saturn K2. But what happened was Saturn. When you have Saturn 12 from the Arudha lagna, you don't like malefics. It's like Saturn in the 12th house. It just means lots of expenditure. So what happened in his campaign is that he spent so much money on New Hampshire and had all these workers helping him, and he just didn't have a sense of budgeting money. When I've talked to, who's taken my class on the 12th house, and I have Saturn in the 12th house. Saturn 12th house is kind of unconscious about expenditures, and Saturn in the 12th house tends to be particularly unconscious about expenditures. So what happened in the Saturn period from the Arudha lagna point of view is he had Saturn in the 12th, and he overspent all this money on the campaign, and he ran out of money, and then he had to kind of withdraw. But he also kind of became a laughingstock from this speech that he gave after the New Hampshire primary. And so now, when you really, if you were to look at this chart just from the main chart point of view, you'd say, okay, Sun in the first house is kind of a good politician. It has dignity in Scorpio. It's in Jupiter's nakshatra. It's got Mars in the first house. Again, very, you'd say maybe too aggressive. But again, Mars is an Achilles heel for the chart. In Jaimini astrology, the Atmakara is the planet that gives us the most challenges in our lifetime. And so actually Mars is kind of he's not aware of how his ego shows up or how he expresses his power. And so he kind of blew that. And the moon, exalted moon in the 7th, is going to be good for being in public, and he got a lot of recognition right away, in the primary and by the network. And the PK is connected to the 5th house. And if you know anything about the 5th house in Vedic astrology, is connected to politics. So he's got an exalted PK and it's the moon for being in public. And then, so when you look at this chart originally, I'm saying, okay, this guy has a good potential of becoming president. But the answer was he failed because the Dasha period he was running was Saturn. Saturn's 12th from the Arudha lagna. He was in Saturn K2. K2, is actually the chart lord. Is in the 12th from here, and he just kind of died. So I just wanted to point this out as, we have to learn how to look at charts in different ways. And like people, it's only been late in my career that when I started studying Jaimini astrology, that I started realizing that You know, Arudhas are everything because they're really about how people see us. It's how money manifests. It's how our homes manifest. It's how jobs manifest. And it's so important to kind of read the chart from the Arudha lagna. And it's just, you know, something that's just not taught enough. And it's only because of Sanjay Roth's tradition and the people that he's created that I've been fortunate to kind of learn this stuff. So I'm just sharing it with you because it's, you know, when we learn beginning astrology, they teach us simple things and because we have to just get the basics down, but they're not always accurate, you know. And when you go deeper, you find the truth. Okay. So any questions on Howard Dean and what I was doing here?
Well, you know, looking from a Jaimini perspective, his AMK, there's a Rashi Drishti from the GK, so I could see why he wouldn't be elected during the Gemini. I think, was he running? No, what period was he running at the time?
He was in Aries period when he dropped out of the election, and specifically, again, you'd have to take my Jaimini classes, but I don't want to get too digressive here. He was in Aries Sag, and
from a Sag, I could see that he wouldn't win, and Aries is the 6th house. So
right, and then Mars, I mean, well, K2's 7 houses away. So I mean, there's a lot of problems with here. But I just wanted to show you. Sometimes when we do charts, you know, it's just you know, what we think is true. You know, this has a great potential for being a president, but you know, but it isn't. It didn't happen, and you could see why. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so one of the things what we want to focus on today is this idea that planets from the 11th house will show how 11th house from the Arudha lagna here. Planets from the 11th house from the Arudha will show the native how he goes about gathering wealth from income. So most of us thought that the 11th house was about where our income came from, and it's just not true again. So it's the 11th house from the Arudha lagna that we want to look at. So if you have malefics in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, like Saturn, Rahu, Mars, you're going to be a little bit more gain your money in cruel. Like Tony Soprano, you know, these mafia characters always have these extreme malefics in, you know, 11 from the Arudha lagna, and they're successful at making money, but they do it through extorting people and they're criminals, you know, right? You know, obviously there's degrees of, you know, of dignity as to how that will happen, but so the thing that you need to memorize, and this is just from the general Arudha lagna, is that all planets are, so there are all these rules about Arudha lagnas. And again, if you go back and listen to the Arudha lagna tapes again, it'll become clear. But this is the basic point if you just need to memorize something. So all planets are positive in the 11th or the 9th from the Arudha lagna. So that's, again, there's a whole new set of rules that you have to learn. You know, we learn all the rules about Parashara astrology, but in Jaimini we have to know that all planets are positive in the 11th and the 9th from the Arudha lagna. All planets are negative in the 12th from the Arudha lagna. We just saw that in Howard Dean's chart. And the Saturn was particularly bad because it was malefic and it was in poor dignity in Leo. Now, benefics are auspicious in the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th, and 10th from the Arudha lagna. And even debilitated malefics are also auspicious here. Debilitated benefics are inauspicious in these houses. So we always want dignity, you know, in Jaimini astrology to kind of manifest stuff. And when we don't have it, it doesn't work. So even in Howard Dean's case, we had debilitated Venus conjunct his Arudha lagna. It wasn't good for how he showed up. And eventually the networks caught him on TV being a carnival barker and he just lost it. So you have to kind of memorize these rules because you end up using them a lot. And this is the problem with Gemini astrology. I mean, it is learning a whole new code. And I'm being a little ambitious bringing this in here. I don't want to lose you, but it's kind of like if you want to get at the truth, you've got to kind of go deeper with this material. So spend a little time studying Gemini astrology. And then malefics are auspicious in the 3rd and the 6th from the Arudha lagna. Debilitated benefics are also auspicious here. Debilitated malefics are inauspicious in these houses. So there are all these kind of new rules you have to learn. If you don't put them on flashcards and learn them, then they don't come to mind. If you're doing friends charts or if you do charts professionally, you have to kind of, know this stuff. And I know it's kind of overwhelming at first, but once you learn it, it's easy. Like you just have to take some time. And I can't memorize this stuff for you. So when we're looking at Arudhas and money, so the Vedic text always tells us we don't want malefics in the 11th from the Arudha lagna. So that's easy to remember. So if we put Saturn, Mars, or Rahu, or Ketu in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, then we might have earn money from unfair means. And people do this all the time. We see, big companies do this even. We see people sometimes have kind of shady dealings. You get drug dealers often have malefics 11 from the Arudha lagna, or people who kind of aren't very ethical in their businesses. They may just pretend to kind of offer something, and I bought something on eBay and somebody advertised the hell about it, and it was just not. It didn't deliver anything that it was promised. We have this all the time. Trying to find ethical behavior in business, and if you have malefics in the 11th house from the Arudha lagna, you have to remember to be ethical, because you may tend to kind of like skirt the edges, and it's always important, for future lives in this life to kind of earn money through ethical means. Obviously, benefics in the Arudha lagna, the 11th from the Arudha lagna, are very positive for earning money, and you'll do it from a sattvic point of view. Jupiter in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, you'll earn money from, maybe teaching or counseling or coaching or something like that. Benefics, we like benefics in the 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th from the Arudha lagna, or the 5th or the 9th, and they give wealth and prosperity. So I guess I'm fortunate. You can look at some of your charts too. So my Arudha lagna again is, that's Howard Dean. I just don't know why this is. I may have to close the program and reopen it, but then I'll lose. So my Arudha lagna is Capricorn, and I've got Venus in here, so that's very fortunate for money. And I've got Mercury 2nd from the Arudha lagna, so that's fortunate for money. And I've actually always been very lucky with money. Sometimes I do have ups and downs with it because of other things, but I've always kind of very lucky with money. So we like benefics in the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th from the Arudha lagna, or the 5th or the 9th. Malefics in the 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th, or the 5th or the 9th cause money problems. So again, these are a whole new set of rules that you have to realize, and we'll go through your charts and you can look at them. But I just I always have a lot of material to get through, and sometimes we'll do our best to kind of use you as case studies. We need to observe dignity for the amount of income that will come. So exalted or debilitated is in the 11th house from the Arudha lagna will bring high level of income. Now, this is one of these things that I never quite understand, and Sanjay has done this a number of times. He'll say a debilitated Jupiter can bring lots of money, and it does. And it's not something, debilitated Jupiter is unethical is the problem, but it can actually, for some reason, exalted or debilitated planets in the 11th from in the 11th house from the Arudha can bring high level of income. If you have it in your own sign, like Mars in Aries, or something like Jupiter in Sag or something like that, above average income. In a friendly sign, average income. And obviously, if you're struggling, you have it there's the dignity is less. It's an enemy sign if it's it's stuff like that. So, but it turns out even it's one of these funny rules in Gemini astrology. Okay. So malefics in the 2nd, 6th, and 8th from the Arudha lagna create money through unfair or objectionable means. But we particularly like having Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus 2nd from the Arudha lagna. And so you always, we know, in a normal chart, we like Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus and the Moon, particularly in the 2nd house, because that, is good for family money and stuff like that. But it's particularly good to have Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus in the 2nd house from the Arudha lagna. Okay, so we talked about if the Arudha lagna is conjunct Rahu or Ketu, it may give the impression that a person's either a crook or a monk, and I think I gave some examples of that. Now, our focus today, this is all kind of background material. Any questions on what we just covered? Because it's like I said with Jyotish, you have to kind of listen to the tapes a second time. You have to kind of study it. When it's like new material, it's just kind of, I'm exposing it to you, you're going to go over it, you're going to look at your charts, you're going to look at the examples, and then it's going to sink in. And so all I can do in these classes sometimes is kind of go slow enough and take your questions and expose you to it, and then it'll take a little time to sink in, but it's very profound. Any questions on anything that we? Yeah.
Barry, I do have a couple of questions, and that has to do with, I guess, the terms that you used. The first thing that she said, the 11th from Arudha lagna is how you gather income. When you say gather income, so are you meaning from your own efforts of gathering, or what do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's this whole larger question is how do you earn money? Some people have to work for other people, and some people, are entrepreneurs and, may be drawn to doing some particular business. And that's a whole issue that we can cover next week. But somehow, I mean, the signs, the planets in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, where the owner of the Arudha lagna goes and what planets are conjuncted, those will all give you clues about what, how you can find sources of income in your chart. Now, some people come to me and they like, how can I make money? And I'm having trouble making money. I don't know what to do to make money, and I'm tired of these jobs as being a waitress or things like that. And so this is what you have to do. And I have a cookbook for you, which I'll come up in a minute. Is you have to look at what sign is the 11th, what sign is the 11th from the Arudha lagna. So if it's a Virgo, that may be service or healthcare or business. If it's 11th from the Arudha lagna is Cancer, that might be hostesses, restaurants, hotels, things like that. So you look at the sign, then you look at planets in the 11th house, and they have a quality to them. So that's why Jyotish gets so complicated, and we have such a diverse world. And then the owner, where's the owner of the 11th house place? So in this case, since I'm doing this, we'll just go over it now. So the 11th from my Arudha lagna is Scorpio. The owner of Scorpio is Ketu.
I thought the 11th from Arudha lagna is Cancer.
Yeah, no, it's wrong here in my chart because I've got it set. My Arudha lagna is Capricorn. Okay, I've just played with it for too long. So the 11th from my Arudha lagna is Scorpio, and the owner of Scorpio is Ketu. Ketu is with Jupiter and Gemini. So I have always earned money through counseling, consulting, teaching from Jyotish. I've had this financial astrology business since 1987. And that's that's kind of very kind of clear in the chart. I've earned money from readings. I've earned money from books. That's all Gemini. I have definitely made a living from Ketu, from astrology. I've been a spiritual teacher, a yoga teacher, meditation teacher also, but I haven't really made money from that. But you can see that. Yeah, and the point you're making is yes, the 11th from the 11th from the moon does own Cancer here, so there is kind of a spiritual connection here. The moon could also be food. You know, my family was in the grocery business, and also, you know, I am connected to commodities, which is kind of moon. But you know, the moon here in the 11th from the Rula Lagna, you know, I am kind of a nurturing type person. I'm kind of a healer. I wouldn't say I'm a nurse or anything, but yeah. Did I answer your question, Kathy?
Yeah, I think I got it. And
Okay.
you answered the second question. If you don't have any planets in the 11th from Arudha Lagna, you look at the Lord and the positioning of the Lord of that house.
I mean, the aspects to the Lord, the aspects to the sign that the Lord is in. We're going to go through a bunch of case studies so that you're going to get this down, and that's what I really wanted to do here. Okay, so so the 11th from the Arudha Lagna shows income, while the 12th from the Arudha Lagna shows sources of losses. So you want your 11th house stronger than your 12th house. So like and this is very basic. So if you had Sun in the 11th house from the Arudha Lagna, you'd have gains from government, from father, from politicians, from a priest, from maybe even solar power. I mean, Sun is solar power now. You know, you always have to you have to always modernize the symbols and the karakas because they've changed, right? So we didn't have solar power, you know, 5,000 years ago in Parashara, but the Sun is obviously solar power. So, you know, and there are people who have solar power companies. I have a friend like that. Moon in the 11th from the Arudha Lagna, you could earn money from your mother, from bureaucrats, from water, from food supplements, from medicine, from hospitality, from restaurants and hotels. So Moon, I would even say nursing. You know, Moon is always kind of nursing too. You know, like
What about real estate?
real estate's Mars. Mars and K2. K2 is like apartment buildings, and Mars is like property. So if you sell agricultural land, or if you sell property for somebody to build on, that's Mars. If you sell apartment buildings, that's K2. Yeah, yeah, okay. So Mars in the Arudha Lagna, or 11th from the Arudha Lagna, is connected to military equipment, which nobody does. So you could earn money through your brothers. Maybe you have a business with your brothers. You can earn money through strategizing. And Mars is a strategic planner, you know, a military strategist. Mars governs strategy and marketing. Landed property, again, that's, you know, like soil, agricultural property. Soil is Mars. Weapons is Mars. Construction is Mars. Engineering and IT are both Mars. So Mars is, you know, governs technical things. You know, he has very logical. And so if you had Mars connected to the 11th house from the Arudha Lagna, that would be that. Now, Mercury 11 from the Arudha Lagna is uncles and relatives. You know, maybe you're in business with a relative. Maybe you earn money from litigation. Maybe you earn money from writing contracts. Maybe you earn money from books and advertising. From accounting, Mercury is accounting, or financial business transactions. Jupiter 11th from the Arudha Lagna, you could earn money from priests. So maybe you work in the temple or something like that, or you earn money from counseling and advising from your elder sibling. And this is weird because the older sibling, the karaka for the older sibling is actually Jupiter, and the younger sibling karaka is Mars. You could earn money from children to be, you know, teaching school if you had a preschool or something like that. You could earn money from storage. Again, Jupiter's about storage, isn't it? It's about how much we hold on to stuff. You could earn money through banking and investments, from teaching, from education, and from gold. Venus in the 11th from the Arudha Lagna, you can earn money through women, from your spouse. Maybe you have a business with your wife, from aunts, from beauty professions like fashion or hair salons, from entertainment. You know, acting and music and all that stuff is very Venusian. Management and marketing. We forget, you know, that Venus is a very good business person. And so you have to remember that Venus is the, you know, Shukracharya. She's actually a very good business person. So management, marketing, advertising sometimes can be connected with Venus. Vehicles and travel are also connected to Venus. Saturn might earn money from ancestors. Maybe that could mean an inheritance who've passed away. Or maybe your grandfather. If you have Saturn the 11th from the Arudha Lagna, maybe it means that you got an inheritance from your grandfather or something like that. Ascendant also governs body care and massage, oil, plastics, chemicals, iron, insurance, shares of stocks, tax evasion. I don't know why that's, I don't know how you would, I guess if you don't pay your taxes, you earn money, right? Okay. So those are kind of basic things, but Karakas are very rich, and I think in some of my classes, I've had a whole page of Karakas, and so you have to kind of get a Karaka encyclopedia sometimes to kind of look things up, because there's so many combinations. The universe is very diverse. Rahu in the 11th from the Arudha lagna means you might earn money from foreigners. Rahu governs foreign things. Rahu is imports and Ketu is exports. Now, I'm not quite sure of the logic on that, but I guess it does make sense. But Rahu, if you have an import business, you have Rahu 11th from your Arudha lagna. Rahu actually also has a very kind of machinery orientation. So if it's connected to technology. Should have put technology. Rahu now is technology. I mean, everybody. Aquarius is very technology. Large machines and vehicles, adventure and dangerous sports. I have a friend who has an adventure park, with those bungee lines and things like that. That's kind of a Rahu thing. Research is actually very Rahu, and mining is very Rahu. Ketu in the 11th from Arudha lagna is exports. A lot of people have import-export businesses. Sometimes just one, sometimes both. Watches. Ketu governs watches, and now it governs computers and mathematics and astrology and astronomy. So Ketu, if you have Ketu 11 from the Arudha lagna, you could earn money from teaching meditation, mystical arts, and I said apartment buildings and townhouses. So Ketu, Mars and Ketu are, very connected, obviously, but Ketu governs kind of built-up property like apartment buildings, condos, and townhouses, and Mars governs more landed property like farmland, or if you sell empty lots to people. That's the difference. So those are kind of the core level things. 11 from the Arudha lagna.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Barry, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you also look at your D9 chart in terms of where your Arudha lagna is, and also especially the second house from that and the 11th?
Yeah,
in the D9?
I don't want to get too complicated here. I could teach a whole lesson on Vargas and Arudha lagnas, and they're a little bit more complicated because if the Vargas aren't perfect, then the Arudhas get all messed up in the Varga charts. You absolutely can do, there's certain Arudhas that you should look at in the Varga charts, but they're very specific ones, and I don't want, it's a very advanced question that we just can't cover now. And in the bottom line, in the D9, I'm not sure I would, I wouldn't go with that too much. Okay. There is a way to read the D9 chart. The D9 chart is important. We just saw Howard. We looked at Howard Dean's chart. He had Mercury. His Mercury, is well placed in a friend sign in Libra in his second from the Arudha lagna, but it's debilitated in the Navamsha chart in conjunct Mars. So it just got ruined. So what we should look at in the D9 chart is if there's a loss of dignity or a lot of malefic aspects that are ruining some Karaka value in the main chart. Okay, does that answer your question? So if let's say you have Jupiter in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, and you should be earning your money from teaching and stuff like that, but Jupiter is conjunct a debilitated Saturn or something in Aries in the D9 chart, then it just may get spoiled.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jessica, did I answer your question?
Yes, so you do look at it, right?
Yeah, you look at it to see how much, like when we teach Vargas, we look at the D9 to see is dignity upheld. So if the Rashi chart has dignity and it's not upheld in the D9 chart, then it doesn't the result doesn't manifest. That's the first way we look at it. Looking at the Arudhas of the Varga charts is a whole complicated lesson, and sometimes there's specific things we look at, and there's only a couple things we look at. I've never taught it. I have an advanced article on it, but it's just very advanced. I can't go there. I can't. We do look at the D9 chart to take. Okay, bottom line, and I may not be clear. Sometimes I talk too much. So the bottom line is, if we're looking at the planet on the 11th from the Arudha lagna, let's say it's Mars, and Mars is, governs, let's say, machinery or technology or things like that, or, selling farmland or something like that. And if Mars is like weak in the D9 chart, like it's in Cancer and it's conjunct Saturn or something like that, then, or it's conjunct K2, then the benefits of making money from landed property with Mars in the 11th house would be spoiled by Mars being in Cancer in the D9. So that's how we would do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you want, let me look at your chart as an example, just because.
Yeah, always, I have Mercury in the D9s from second from Arudha. So
yeah, so again, the D9, the Varga charts always have to be kind of examined in conjunction with the main chart. So the 11th from the Arudha lagna, you've got Mercury, and I'm sorry, your Arudha lagna is Sagittarius. The Jupiter is conjunct Saturn in Virgo, so we have to kind of look at that, and we have to see what other things are going on. So in the D9 chart, Jupiter is with Venus and Saturn here, and you're I don't pay attention to the Arudha lagna of the Navamsha chart. I mean, don't, I wouldn't go there, because that's just so what I'm trying to evaluate here is, okay, so the 11th from your Arudha lagna is no planets in it. There are no major aspects to it. We've got, got the A9 and the A5 aspect.
I thought her 11th from her Arudha lagna is Libra.
Right, thank you. I'm getting confused. Thank you, Affy. There's obviously so much going on sometimes in these classes. So,
and then, does she have the aspect of Mars and Mercury to that?
Yeah. So, what we have to kind of, if we were to evaluate what are your ideal sources of income, Jessica, and we'll have to go through all your charts, is, we have to look at Mars and Mercury aspecting the 11th from your Arudha lagna. We have to look at the Lord of the Arudha lagna itself, which is well placed with Jupiter. And we have to look at Venus, and Venus is in Capricorn with Sun and K2. So yours is very kind of complicated. There's a lot of influences on it. And to actually like, to go into great detail in terms of what it means, I have to think about it a little bit. So we'll try to go through your charts as examples later in the class, and let's see if I can like put it together.
I do have a question about Jessica's, which is perfect, because I had that question and I see it in Jessica's. So 11th from her Arudha lagna is Libra.
Right.
And I know in Vedic we don't use outer planets, but I'm just curious, and if Jessica doesn't mind sharing, she also has Pluto in Libra, and I'm wondering whether that has any effect on how she gathers income, or how she gets income.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you too, like if the 11th Lord is in the second from the Arudha lagna. So that's my case. I am in home furnishing, so it is kind of Libra related business. I'm not sure about the Pluto there.
The
What
Pluto, I
that,
think, that's giving you a lot of power in your business up until recently. But I'm not sure I would, I haven't used the outer, I do use the outer planets. I haven't used it with the Arudha lagna, and nobody in Gemini astrology does. So I think it's work in progress. But yeah, it's a good question. To me, one of the problems is that Venus, the Lord of the 11th from the Arudha lagna, is very closely conjunct Ketu. And so it can be kind of taking away some energy from it. But, Ketu can be explosive sometimes in giving stuff. Venus, second from the Arudha lagna, is good for accumulating money, and it's very powerful in a friend sign. And then and Saturn, the Lord of this whole complex, is very powerful conjunct Jupiter, and is conjunct the A2. So I don't want to lose everybody, but I mean, yours is a very complicated case, and I want to do some simpler ones so that, and we'll try to come back and help everybody figure out their own cases, but yours is very complicated. But thank you for asking the question. I'm sorry if I haven't totally answered it. I have to, when you get so many influences, you have to really kind of think about it, okay? Okay, so let's go back to, okay, so translating signs and planets. So this is what I call cookbook material. I'm giving it to you. I don't want to go through it because it's like reading a cookbook and it's going to be boring. But if you want to get more information about signs and industries, I did kind of list, some things that you might not think about. And sometimes we, in business astrology, you have to kind of expand. Some of them are easy to remember. Aquarius, I always remember biotech and technology and computers and research companies, but also it's like Uranus, so it's like electrical companies or power companies, or could be solar panels and things like that. Casinos for some reason go with Aquarius because of Rahu, but Capricorn is easy to remember. Mining, Capricorn is the miners, right? Capricorn is connected to mining shares, to iron shares, to oil, to black articles, to things, in the ground, earthy things, Scorpio, for some reason, I don't know, is sugar. It's something I would never think about. Chemicals, I always remember for Scorpio. The chemical industry, I do find that works quite well. For some reason, Scorpio has a lot to do. I meet people who are connected to they're chemists, or they're in the chemical industry, or they're industrial chemists, and there's a Scorpio influence there. Scorpio is also poisons, funeral homes, meat markets. Libra is always easy to remember because it's fashion, it's jewelry, it's silk, it's painting, it's it's also market, it's always like a marketing company. So you have to, again, I've got these in here, and you can kind of go through them when you need to look up something. But again, if you have time, you put them on a flashcard and you memorize them, because business astrology, you have to memorize new values. So again, more about planets in business. I gave you a list of 11 from the Arudha lagna, but here's some of the other translations of business planets. Again, I'm not going to go through them all, but because it's boring. But let's get to the case studies, and then we'll this is why we have class, because you can memorize the rules at home. You can memorize I can't memorize rules for you. I can't memorize cookbooks for you, Karka values. We can't remember them all. We look them up. You print them out and you look them up. But we should be doing case studies in class, and that's what I want to do with the majority of our time. So the rules for I went through this quickly before. The rules for deciding where you're going to gather your money from is what planets are in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, and we went through that already real quickly. If you've got Mars in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, maybe you should be selling empty lots, but we'd have to look at many things. If you had Jupiter in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, you should be making money from teaching and counseling and coaching and being a priest or a clergyman or things like that. So first of all, we look at what planets are 11 from the Arudha lagna. Now the planets 11 from the Arudha lagna, a planet is more in a house is more important than the owner of the house. So we always give primary attention to what planets are in the 11th from the Arudha lagna. Oftentimes there are no planets 11 from the Arudha lagna. So where is its Lord placed? This is basic Jyotish. What sign and planets is it conjunct by? So this, sometimes there's nothing in the Arudha lagna and 11 from the Arudha lagna, but the Lord of the Arudha lagna is with 3 other planets in another sign, and then so that's how you derive your information. Now, I mentioned last week, and we may go more into this next week. We also want to look at the A11, and so we said each house has an Arudha also. So the A4 may actually, would be, you count 4 from the Lord of the 4th house, and you get the A4, and that may actually, I showed you that last week in my chart. That may be actually your physical houses and cars that you manifest. So the 11 actually would be important to look at also, because it may be the manifestation of money itself, of the income. So we'll also look at the A11. Now the rule with the A11 is very kind of, I wouldn't say weird, but it's just, you have to remember it, is you want the A11 in a trine house and having a benefic aspect, and then it will support regular income. If it's in a trick house or having malefic aspects, then income is blocked. And people come to me and, you look at their chart and you think, I don't know why he's having problems. And then, you look at the A11 and it's, it's in the 8th house or the 12th house and it's conjunct Mars or Saturn. And then they just can't manifest money their whole life. And they just, so you have to come up with remedies for them. But, so these are kind of the core cookbook rules, and this is what you should be getting out of this lesson. And then to look up signs and look up signs and colorations of planets, I have the cookbook, but it doesn't make sense for us to go through it. So let's go through some examples. And these, I'm very grateful to Sanjay Roth for doing this work. Sometimes coming up with your own examples can take, I've done it in my classes, in my medical astrology class. I can spend 5 hours coming up with examples. So I have to be grateful that Sanjay had some good examples in his book. And so these are the ones that we'll be going through. And then we will look at your charts too. Okay, so this is our first example. What happened? And this, again, we've got Mercury. Next week, you'll have to be careful with your computers and stuff, because we've got Mercury opposing Mars, and we have Mercury squared by Saturn. So back up your computers this weekend, just be on top of technology problems. But I'm having stuff already today. Let me pull this one up. I did send you the data for this, but what happened was the longitude and latitude came out, even though I saved it. So I have to put it back in. I have to look up what it is. Excuse me a second while I get that. So let's move to the other one, which is, this one is actually kind of fascinating. Let's start with it. I'm just looking it up on my other slideshow. Okay, so this guy was born in okay, see the longitude and latitude dropped, and I had to look it up. This guy actually was, if I put in Pakistan, it will come out right. So I'm just going to put in Lahore is in northern India, very close to the Pakistani border. And at this time, India and Pakistan were all of India, and they weren't separated. This is on the India-Pakistan border. And I had the longitude and latitude, and I had to look it up. If somebody actually can even look that up real quickly, I could put it in. Just kind of jumped out, but if I put in
For Lahori, I have 31.52 north, and then 74.35 east.
okay, 3152 north, and how much east?
74.35, 87 east.
87 east. Okay, and then if you know India, the time zone is 5:30. It's good. We've all gotten used to not knowing how to calculate charts by hand, but it's, when things like this come up, you have to know it. Okay, so yeah, this is correct.
Pakistan is a little bit different, though. Pakistan goes 30.37 and then 69.34 for Pakistan.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's on the border there. Okay, so I just let me pull up this. Thank you for your patience here, because I just. Okay, so this guy's Virgo rising. I did put notes on this in so you could cheat, but this is kind of an interesting chart. Virgo rising, Mercury in the second, which is good. We're just looking at the. If you're evaluating this as a regular chart, what would you say about this chart? Pretty complicated, but
Ninth lord in the first house with Rahu and Sun. Oh my gosh, this guy has some type of karma that's going to be pretty big.
It's a pretty complicated chart. Lord of the 8th and the 1st, Mars with Rahu. Now Rahu has exalted in the 1st here. Sun in the 1st, Lord of the 12th and the 1st. Mercury, which is the best planet, is in the 2nd house in a friend's sign. It's in Rahu's nakshatra. So, if we think we like in general, if we're not even looking at Arudhas yet, if we're just looking at this chart, we like Mercury in the 2nd in Libra for money, and we like it. It's in Swati nakshatra, which many of you know is a very kind of money-oriented nakshatra. It's ruled by Rahu. It's connected to luxury. So, generally you might think this man had money. Now, if we looked at the rest of the chart, he's got Saturn exactly debilitated at 20 degrees Aries in the 8th house with conjunct Jupiter, which is Lord of the 7th. And he's got it's a pretty complicated life. Venus in the 12th, not great. Okay, so that's just the regular chart. Any other thoughts on his regular chart?
His Jupiter is I think the Mars and Jupiter is actually we call it Parivartana Yoga, is it?
It's not a Parivartana Yoga. It's Lord of the 8th and the 1st. Jupiter doesn't aspect Mars here, but yeah, there's an exchange of houses between Mars and Mercury. You're thinking of the Parivartana Yoga. It isn't. It's a partial yoga because there's 3 levels of yogas. I see what you're seeing here. Mars is aspecting Mercury, which is the Lord. Jupiter is aspecting there are some yogas here. It's a complicated one here, and I see what you're seeing, but it's not a true Parivartana Yoga. It's kind of a Parivartana Yoga by extended aspect. This Jupiter is aspecting Venus and Mercury. I see what you're saying, but it's thank you for pointing that out. But it's a little bit complicated to talk about now. But anybody else want to share anything?
Well, was he thinking that from Prostrary point of view, Mars is aspecting its own house Aries by 8th?
Yeah,
He was thinking that.
yeah, yeah. And it's in the first, but it's not aspecting Mercury. So that's, you know, and then there's no exchange of houses between the 8th and the 2nd, but there is some, there are some, you know, some things going on here. Mars is aspecting its own house, and the 8th could be money from partnership, but it's got to kind of, it turns out this man had a very complicated relationship with money and by partnership. Okay, so now let's look at the chart from the Arudha lagna. Now, okay, let's see. Now, when we have Saturn, we have a debilitated Saturn in the 8th house. He's going to have trouble with his superiors, because Saturn is always kind of like grumbling and wanting to change and not real happy with, you know, so that Saturn in the 8th house is kind of a problem for creating like job change in general. Now, what's interesting is Mars in Virgo is going to create interest in sports and competition. So, and Mars is always into kind of sports and competition. And so Mars in the first house is going to create an interest in sports and competition. And Sun in the first house, even though it's Lord of the 12th, is, you know, connect, and it's the Atmakarka. It's going to create a connection to people who are kind of powerful. And Rahu also kind of creates people who are kind of powerful. So that Sun Rahu conjunction. So it turned out, and I got a misspelling in the slideshow, that this man created a very successful golf course and had partners in that business. And he made a lot of money in his Rahu period from that golf course.
Were the golf courses in foreign lands because of Rahu?
Well, he actually he was born in India and he lived in India, but Rahu I think just gave him, you know, Rahu and Virgo in the first house can give somebody a lot of fame and charisma, particularly in Virgo. And Virgo is, if we're looking at signs here, we're also looking for the fact that, you know, Virgo is, Virgo is also kind of, you know, country clubs or gardens or things like that. So, you know, what I failed to point out, his lagna and is 11th from his Arudha lagna. So, I mean, that's why we get to look at it both ways. But the 11th from his Arudha lagna is Virgo with Mars, Rahu, and Sun in here. And so there's 3 malefics. And, you know, who knows if he did shady deals in getting this golf course together. But basically in his Rahu period, he made lots of money from this golf course. And then he had this big falling out when his Jupiter period came. Jupiter's in the 8th house with the debilitated Saturn. And what happened is when his Jupiter period started, he had a big falling out with his partners. Again, money from partnership is 8th house. Whenever you have, we have a planetary war going on between Jupiter and Saturn, and whenever you have Jupiter conjunct a debilitated Saturn, it kind of gets killed because Saturn will get uplifted by Jupiter because it's a natural benefic. In this case, it's the Lord of 7th and partners, but Jupiter is getting killed, and Jupiter is a Machakarka. Jupiter is getting killed, and by the planetary war and the debilitated Saturn, and basically his partner screwed him, and he somehow got booted out of this partnership and lost all this money, even though he had been this huge, you know, country club golf course owner and was very wealthy. So this is kind of an interesting case study in the sense that, okay, what are we looking at? The 11th from the Arudha lagna is Virgo, the sign of Virgo. So Virgo could be gardens, it could be country clubs, it could be, It could be hospitals, it could be healing centers, okay. Mars here is creating, you know, an interest in competition or sports, so he could be, you know, he's interested in sports. Sun is, you know, Sun and Rahu creating a connection with wealthy people and people with prominence. And then the Lord of Mercury is in Libra and Rahu's nakshatra. So again, there's a lot of money that came out of this during his Rahu period, but then it all went away in his Jupiter period. Okay. Also has a yogi point here if you took my first class. So, you know, there was a, you know, and that's the case. And so the point is also sometimes the chart, you know, the whole thing about Jyotish, which is very difficult, the chart sometimes shows you the seeds of what is going to sprout, but when it's going to sprout is how you have to learn timing and advanced timing. And we look up Charadasha, we look up Charadasha too, for those of you who know Charadasha. I think this all came down in 90, during his Pisces period. And also his Pisces, you know, Pisces is or the 7th and the 8th, so his partnerships fell apart. He had Ketu in Pisces and stuff like that. Anyway, some of you have taken my Dasha classes, and I don't want to lose people, but it's just kind of a fascinating case study. Let's move on to the second one, which is a woman born in 1954. Okay, so this is an Aries rising chart. Mars, the chart lord, is conjunct Rahu in Sagittarius in the 9th house. What 11th from the Arudha lagna is not going to be controversial here. The Arudha lagna is the sun and is Leo. The reason we know her Arudha lagna is Leo because okay, Mars, not a dual rulership. Mars is 9 houses away in Sagittarius. This count 9 from Sagittarius, you get Leo. So it's all fire signs, okay? So that this one's very kind of clear cut. The Lord of the Arudha lagna is in Leo. Now we don't have any planets. The 11th from the Arudha lagna has K2 in it. The Lord of the Arudha lagna is Leo. Now so we're basically focusing on the 11th from the Arudha lagna. We've got K2 in it. Now, what can we say about K2 in Gemini? And it's in Rahu's nakshatra, aspected by Mars, and the Sun in Gemini. What can we say about K2 in this chart?
Well, Gemini is a sign that you're always thinking, and thought process, and like talking too much. Maybe she talks too much about the past with K2 in there, the headless.
Yeah, K2 is usually considered like, I don't actually use the word debilitated. It's not strong there. You know, K2 is an emotional, intuitive creature, and it doesn't do well in Gemini where it thinks too much. You're right. Now, K2 governs exports, as we learned. So she actually did have an export business. And again, we always have to play with, you know, who's, you know, whenever we're dealing with the nodes, who's the lord of Gemini? It's Mercury. And where is Mercury placed? So Mercury's in Libra with Venus and Saturn. Okay, so what we could figure out from this is immediately whenever we think, and we've got Venus having a lot of dignity here in Libra, whenever we see Libra, you know, for a woman who might be in business, you're going to think either marketing or fashion or something like that. And it turned out she was involved in an export business involving clothing, and you know, so the Lord of the 11th from the Arudha lagna is in Libra and connected to Venus. So there's, you know, you could easily see fashion here. You know, you always have to kind of think of multiple karakas or symbols when you're dealing here. But, you know, in India it was kind of, a lot of clothes are made in India. And it's got an exalted Saturn here, which is not a great planet for Aries, you know, and you know, or even from the Arudha lagna, it's not a great planet. So what happened here? You know, we also sometimes have to look at aspects, and this is where you know, this is not right, but Saturn does aspect the Arudha lagna here. And again, when you learn your aspects, you'll notice that the movable signs, which is Libra, aspect the fixed sign. So Leo is a fixed sign, the sun is fixed in the sky. So all these planets are aspecting her Arudha lagna, Mercury, Venus, and Saturn. Mercury and Venus are good aspects to the Arudha lagna, they're benefics, but Saturn is Saturn, you know, and Saturn's not a good planet for her. Anyway, we look at the chart, and Saturn is aspecting the Arudha lagna, so it's kind of slowing her development. So it turned out she struggled with her business for many years, and let's got Moon in the 8th. We're supposed to use a special dasha here. Let's look at dasha. So, you know, like anybody who starts a new business, sometimes it doesn't always take off right away. And this is, people call you, when is my business going to take off, or what do I need to do to take my business off? And you have to kind of look at this. So, I'm just wondering if I still have this. Now, this is where I said we have to look at, let's see, I'm going to look at her. Sometimes is crafty here. Saturn, Mars. So I always go back. In my dasha class, we learned multiple ways to create dashas, and sometimes there are multiple dashas. And Sanjay was using some advanced dasha that I don't even teach, but we should find the fact that her business took off in Leo, her Leo Aquarius period. For those of you who know Chara dasha. Now, now she does have her Leo period, which, you know, obviously kind of gives kind of prominence and attention to oneself. You know, is ruled by the sun. The sun's in the 2nd house here. She does have her yogi point here in Leo, and she's got an exalted. Now, one thing that's really nice about this chart, she has an exalted Jupiter, and from the Arudha lagna, it's in the 12th house. Now, that actually, you know, 12th house is foreign countries, and her business took off. Her export business took off when she went into her Leo period, and you could see that with the exalted Jupiter 12 houses from the Arudha lagna. Again, I can't. Sanjay was using some bizarre dasha, Manduka dasha, which I don't want to bring it up. But he actually timed. She went into a Jupiter period in this advanced dasha, and then her business took off. But you can also see it in Chara dasha, though. Okay, so this is why Joe just gets so complicated. Okay, let's look at another case study. Open. Okay, let's see. This man's Pisces rising with Moon in the first. And that's a nice chart. Jupiter, Lord of the charts, in the 7th with Sun and Mercury. What could you say in general about this chart? Spiritual man, Lord of the 5th and the 1st, probably into, does mantras, probably Indian man, probably very religious, being ruled by Pisces. Jupiter in the 7th in a business sign here, with the Sun, Lord of the 6th, and Mercury, Lord of the 7th, exalted in the 7th. Mars is Mars is nice. Mars is kind of messed up. Mars is not in a good place in the 10th house here. Even though we usually like Mars in the 10th house, in the Navamsha chart, it's no, actually, in the Navamsha chart, it has a problem. Not horrible. It's just conjunct Rahu in the Navamsha chart, but okay. So the Arudha lagna is Sagittarius. Now, this is one of these rules. So if the Arudha, if when a planet, if the chart lord goes into the 7th house, the 7th house can never have the Arudha lagna in it. And so if the chart lord Pisces goes into the 7th house Virgo here, then the Arudha lagna becomes Sagittarius. So again, so his main chart lord is Jupiter, his Arudha lagna lord is Jupiter. Okay, it's a good thing. Jupiter is also 10 houses away, good positioning in this chart. This is not coming out right. No, it is coming out right. Okay, so 11th from the Arudha lagna is again Libra, and Venus is 11 houses from there. So that's generally good positioning. Anybody else want to add anything about this man's chart in general? And I would say a debilitated retrograde Saturn in the 2nd and generally is not good for family money and probably holding on to money. But sometimes people with Saturn in the 2nd will just save every penny, so because they just are, just frugal about that. But I would say that in general about his general wealth tendency for wealth in this chart. Anybody else want to add anything? Am I losing you guys? Is this man going to be successful?
Well, I think the Arudha lagna, being Sagittarius and the Lord being in 10th house from it and being Makaraka, I think yes.
Yeah.
The 11th being Libra from Arudha lagna, sorry. The 11th from Arudha lagna has the A6, and it's also being aspected by the PK Venus and K2. I think you said Libra and Venus would be the fashion industry or jewelry. Was he a little bit, a softer type person? Was he in the fashion industry?
Well, he wasn't in the fashion industry. And we have, okay, so again, this is why Jyotish is so complicated, because we have these multiple possible significations, and ultimately you kind of talk to people and find out what they're doing or what they're interested in doing, and to get some idea of whether they should go in that direction. But sometimes Rahu is very important in this chart because Rahu aspects the 11 from the Arudha lagna, and Rahu's in Aquarius. Okay, Aquarius is always connected to, in today's day and age, biotech, computer science, machinery, electrical, engineers and things like that. So So it turns out that the source of his income was very connected to the fact that Rahu was aspecting both in Jaimini and Parashari astrology, the 11th from his Arudha lagna, and Venus is also aspecting it here also, and Ketu. Now Ketu, this is in Jaimini astrology, again, planets in Leo are going to aspect planets in Libra. So Venus and Ketu are, so we have Rahu, Venus, and Ketu aspecting Libra here. Now, one of the things that somebody taught me many years ago is a lot of, and I see this when I talk to clients, a lot of computer programmers have a Venus component, and I have no idea why. And it's almost like doing computer programming is almost like an artistic profession, But Ketu is very connected to computers and computer programming, and Rahu also. So there's a lot of strong indications that his income will come from computing, both because Rahu and Ketu aspect the 11th from the computer Rahu. Venus, like I said, has a funny computer component to it, and that's good. Now the problem is,
He couldn't hold on to money because Saturn is conjunct the A11.
yeah, there was a problem with that, but he was actually this is where the debilitated Saturn was not a blog, and this is why sometimes you have to do case studies with real people and see what happens, and you have to look for, whenever you do Jyotish, there's always like multiple influences, and I always tell people it's like 1,000 shades of gray, and you don't get these really clear black and whites all the time. Once in a while you do when those people are starving in the streets and they don't have money to pay for a reading, but usually you get the 1,000 shades of gray, and this is a case of that. So let's see, Moon. Now we can use regular, thank God we can use regular dashas here. Hold on. If you just finish my dasha class, there are multiple ways to calculate dashas. When you start learning them, they come out better. So before he went into his Venus period, his job situation was very unstable, and there's a thing in Vedic astrology called a Vipreet Raj Yoga. He's got Lord of the 8th and the 6th, so it's kind of like two bad things can create something better somehow. But so his Venus period, sometimes I tell people when you have Lord of the 8th and the 6th, or Lord of the 6th and the 8th, maybe you get you have an auto accident and you get insurance money or something like that. But sometimes 6th house is also everyday work, So in this case, the Vipreet Raj Yoga did support his getting a job when he went into his Venus period. And he actually had, even though he's got that debilitated Saturn conjunct his A11, he actually finally, his K2 never brings money. His K2 period did not bring money, but when he went into his Venus period, even though there were some difficult combinations here, it was Venus is connected to the 11th from his Arudha lagna. So here's the whole point of this example is that if you looked at just his Venus period, Venus conjunct Ketu, Venus Lord of the 3rd and the 6th, and it's just not a clear case of his getting a job in his Venus period, but money from work, how he gathered his money was connected to Libra. He went into his Libra period and he was able to get a good regular job even with Saturn conjunct his A11. And that's why it's a very interesting case study. Okay. We'll look at one more. Isn't this, you guys enjoying these case studies? Are you following it? I know some of you who know more Jaimini astrology are following it, and that's why I really was encouraging you to, and I promise the rest of the course won't be this complicated, and I probably should have put this section later in the class, but somehow I thought income was really important.
It's
And
interesting, Barry. You know, I always go. The thing is that sometimes I have to listen to my charts to see the point. So, but I think it's interesting because I think the reason I know the theory of astrology, but I always miss the practical point, and that's when I, you know,
right.
realize the things that I don't know. Otherwise, I will continue thinking that I know too much, and then when I have to read the chart, I'm clueless. So.
Right, right. So these case studies are important because, I mean, these are real life examples, and I can't take my clients because they haven't given me permission. We can look at your charts in a minute. But the point is, it's just when you have real life examples, you can kind of, you know, you kind of see what actually happened and why, you know, why it did happen. And also the dispositor of Venus and Ketu, the dispositor here is strong in its own nakshatra, and is conjunct Jupiter. So that I think this Jupiter is really helping this chart. It's the chart lord too. It's the lord of the 1st and the 10th, conjunct the sun. So that did help him. Okay, let's look at this other person. File open. Okay, so this is another Jupiter chart, Pisces rising. You know, actually, I may have mixed these two up. Sorry. Chart 136. Okay, this is. Okay, no, this is. I've got the right one. I think this is a. Let's see. This is a man. I couldn't remember. Okay. What's kind of nice about this chart? This is similar to the other one. When you look at the, if you got this chart, what would you say?
A lot of spirituality.
Let's see, okay, Pisces rising, probably a very spiritual man. Jupiter in the 1st in Pisces, you know, it's a kind of a it's a powerful yoga. It's luckily not in the Kondanta. But it's Vergotama. So the chart lord is Vergotama. So it's a very powerful Jupiter here.
And he has K2 with the Arudha lagna in the 10th house of his career. So the way that people see him also,
right,
it's spiritual, but someone that also likes to hide, maybe to meditate.
Yeah, people may not see him. Like you said, when you have K2 conjunct the Arudha lagna, people may see him as like a soft, quiet, spiritual person. But you know, maybe we're not going to hire you because you know we don't see who you really are. Okay, yeah, that's a nice observation.
For me, it's like his 10th house is dedicated to career because it's Sagittarius in the 10th house, and that's how people see him because that's his Arudha lagna. But maybe his career is his focus in his life when people see
him as a career person. You know, obviously.
And he has Saturn second from the Arudha lagna, so he definitely doesn't make too much money because he's maybe dedicated to meditate or teach others wisdom or
yeah, Saturn is probably not helping. Saturn, retrograde Saturn in second from the Arudha lagna is not helping money for him. Now again, we have Libra being the 11th from the Arudha lagna. Again, this is again the same situation. If Jupiter can't be if Jupiter's in the 1st house, then to calculate the Arudha lagna, you have to usually go to the 10th. So that's why his Arudha lagna becomes Sagittarius. So if a planet is in its own, Arudha lagna means mirror, and if a planet is in the 7th house or the 1st house or in its own sign, then to calculate the mirror, you have to use what are called the exceptions. You have to usually move it 4 houses or 10 houses, and the rules are pretty simple. And once you learn them, it's it's a piece of cake. But that's why his Arudha lagna is Sag. And Sag, people see Sag as kind of priestly people.
And his Atmakarka is Saturn, so I see that there is suffering in his life and loneliness, and maybe that's why it became so spiritual. So.
Right. Now, what did this man actually? Did this person have trouble with money? Now, this is an example of So Libra is the Lord of the 11th Lord. Libra is the Lord of the 11th house. He's got the A11 in there also. And Venus, the owner of Libra, it's in the 5th house in Pusha Nakshatra, conjunct an enemy sun. So his income should come from. Now this is one of these funny rules. Planets that when you have a planet conjunct something, it's very powerful for being a kind of a source. So the source of income for this man is going to be Libra, and Venus, the Lord of the 11th house, is in Cancer, and it's conjunct the Sun. And so the planet that's most important here is not the Moon, but it's actually the Sun, because the Sun becomes the source of income for the 11th Lord. Now, in this case, the Sun is connected to government. So his income should come from government, and but he had trouble reaching his. This is a person who had trouble manifesting money, manifesting his income. His money should be coming from government, but he kept kind of not getting jobs and things like that. And I guess this man came to Sanjay Roth in 1990-91 during his Saturn Moon period, and Saturn K2 Saturn Moon, and he just nothing could manifest for him. We'd have to come up with a remedy for him, but probably be something around the moon. But now here's a case where this is why I wanted to bring this example out. The A11, which is income, this is where I remember I said one of the things that we look at is we want the A11 in a trine house. We certainly like it in a Kendra house. We'd like it conjunct benefics. We don't like it when it's in a trick house. So his A11 here, which is also in the 11th from the Arudha lagna, so we have a double income connection here, is in the 8th house. So that's also blocking income, the fact that the A11 is in the 8th house. So it's blocking income. And I'm not sure what I would do for this man. So, but again, you're right. This is probably a very spiritual man who just couldn't get a job, and he should have gotten a job from government, but maybe the government kept turning him down because the 11th house, the A11, was kind of blocked here, and such. Now, Mercury is not a good planet for Pisces rising because it owns the 7th, and so the Mercury aspect here to the A11 was not helpful, although we would hope it would be. But so this was a man who was blocked, and then he particularly was blocked during his Saturn Moon period. You can see Moon in the 12th here. Saturn Moon is always a difficult period just because emotionally it's a difficult period, but we have Saturn Moon is like Sati Sat here in that sense. He's got Saturn and the Moon. Moon's in the 12th house here, so he was just kind of blocked. Okay, so those are the 4 examples. Now we should probably go to your charts. I have all kinds of other material. I think we'll go through it next week. I want to do something with the Arudha next week, which is kind of interesting. So let's look at your charts. Do you have any questions on anything I did? I was just and if you're lost, go back and study Jaimini astrology. And I realize it's a whole new language. When I first picked up Jaimini astrology, I was like, what? But once you listen to the Jaimini astrology videotape, and for those of you who had trouble, anybody else have trouble downloading the tapes from Dropbox? The thing with Dropbox is basically if you pay the $11.99 join Dropbox and make sure you just get the monthly option. Then it's real easy. Then you just download the tapes into your Dropbox and either download them to your computer or download them to or watch them from Dropbox. But I just learned Dropbox got real crafty. It used to be I could send a link from Dropbox and you could just click on it and download it. And now Dropbox is trying to make more money and they want you to pay the $11.99 to join Dropbox, and then it's easy. So I think that's the problem, Christopher. But you have to look. I sent an email about it. You have to, when you go to the Dropbox site, you have to look real carefully because they're going to want you to sign up for a year and charge you $120 or something. And just you have to kind of scroll through there and look for the monthly option, and then you can just cancel it after the class is over. And that's I will try to send stuff from Google Drive. It's not always easier because I have to upload it to Google Drive and I have to download it, and it's just tricky. But I can send today's tape from Google Drive easily, but the old tapes are harder because I have them stored. Okay. So questions? Did I lose all of you here? I could tell from the silence. What is he talking about? Okay, so if you feel a little bit lost, we'll spend more time on this. I think I have because money and career are connected. I think we'll just keep kind of going deeper into this because I think one of the most key things that people come to you about if you're an astrologer is, what should I do for my life purpose? How can I make money from it? How can I make money from my chart? And that's what a lot of this class is about. So we'll spend a lot more time on that. But I do need you to work with me and study some of this material because I can't, there is a code that we have to learn. And unfortunately, like I said, sometimes you look at these charts and you kind of think, okay, this is a lucky guy. He's got Jupiter in Pisces, he's got Venus in the fifth, but, this, Jyotish gets very complicated, and we have to to really get good answers, we have to kind of go really deeply into material. Okay, let's look at some of your charts so we can use some more case studies. Anybody want to volunteer that's lost?
Me, Barry. Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. You can.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, don't worry about it.
No, you can go first. I'm okay with that.
Who's the second person who's asking?
Diana, and you.
Yeah.
Diana, I recognize your voice. Jessica, is that you?
Yes.
Okay. Jessica, yours is hard, and so let's see what we can discover here. Yours is really hard, and then sometimes we also have to look from the Dasha Lord too. So
I can tell you my best period for my business was my Mars Dasha, and I still don't know why, except that it's the ruler of my chart. But that's the best 7 years of my career. My business took off. It's just unstoppable success, and then it just died. But whenever it's like a Mars,
the period.
Yeah, period. It's always luck in finance, and I don't know why.
But you have Mars in the 11th house, which is
Mars in the 11th house, which is good.
Yes.
So that's just pretty straightforward. It's in Rahu's nakshatra. Rahu is connected to Mercury in the nakshatra Ashlesha.
Is it because of Mars Mercury in Shatavisha?
Yeah, you have a very complicated. You have a very complicated chart. So let's see what we can do to kind of unravel it a little bit as a case study.
The reason I'm asking about D9 is because ever since Saturn is in my current position, which is second house from my Arudha lagna in D9, it's so difficult for me financially. That's why I feel like, oh, maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, transits. I didn't teach you transits from the Arudha lagna. There are certain transits from the Arudha lagna that are tricky. And Saturn probably is not great from the Arudha lagna. But let's see what we can do to see what's going on. And you have a very complicated chart.
Do you do something related to service? I noticed that the Venus, which is the ruler of the sixth from the Arudha lagna, is in the second.
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
are agents. So I have a home furnishing agency that we manufacture and source products for big box retailers here.
Okay, so yes, Venus is elegance, comfort, beauty. So I'm guessing that.
Furnishings can be there. So anything connected to Venus is going to be good. Now Venus, like I said, Venus is pretty complicated here because it's conjunct K2, which sometimes K2 can give and sometimes it can take away. K2.
And Sun is the second from the Arudha lagna, so something that has to do with government, leadership.
I have my own business. From very just as soon as I was out of college, basically, I had my own business. I only worked for somebody for a year.
Yeah.
Barry, Rahu will be transiting into her second house, and pretty soon we'll go over, well, not soon, but I don't know exactly when, but we'll go over her yogi point.
Yeah.
And then also we'll have from a Jaimini standpoint, it will have a Rashi Drishti to her 11th from her Arudha Lagna. So I don't know whether that would.
One of the things that people mess up on sometimes is that the sign aspects should be used from the natal chart as anchors in the chart to see like DNA patterns in the chart, but we shouldn't use Jaimini Rashi Drishti aspects in transit. We use Parashara aspects in transit, and that's something that I learned late in life. It's just that the Jaimini aspects are kind of like their DNA anchors. They're kind of innate qualities in the chart, but the Parashara aspects kind of trigger events more. So the Jupiter aspect in Capricorn aspecting her yogi point, which will be very brief in April or May, will be good. But I'm not sure what to do with the Rahu transit. I'm not sure I would pay too much attention to it, but that's a good point, Affy. Yeah. Okay, but so the thing is, so Rahu Mercury, I think we looked at your chart. We thought Rahu Mercury would be a little bit better for you.
I really hope so. It's like as soon as Saturn retrograde, you're
in a really, we should have a sidebar too, because you're in it's a very kind of difficult situation for you.
Can Rahu Saturn be good for anyone who has a really good Saturn? I feel like my Saturn is pretty good, but I don't know why it's.
Your Saturn is good, but it's a lot of struggle, because anytime you have something, your Saturn's uplifted by Jupiter conjunct Saturn in the 6th. I mean, as an employee, Saturn, Saturn would kind of struggle over coworkers and be successful, in a Rahu Saturn period. That's kind of what I would see here. The dispositor of Rahu is the moon, and the moon is is 4 houses, is 10 houses away. So that is good. Now the nakshatra that the moon is in is Bharani nakshatra, and Venus is not. Venus is kind of a mark, and it's kind of a difficult planet for you, just because it's governs the 2nd and the 7th. So I'm kind of sensing that business partnerships maybe dragging you down because of the Venus K2 conjunction here, and fighting explosions with partners all out of nowhere, whether that's marital partners or business partners, is difficult.
My business partners have been really good, actually. I'm very lucky in finding very supportive business partners. That's the reason that, my business did so well. But, yeah, just ever since Rahu started, it's just, really can't wait to get out of Rahu after, 15 years?
I mean, Rahu, and we can have a sidebar. I mean, Rahu, the first 9 years of my Rahu period were very hard, and I finally had a Vedic ceremony, and then things have just changed dramatically. Rahu is just very confusing, and you can't even kind of figure out what's wrong sometimes, and it's like fighting your way out of a paper bag. And I think Rahu Mercury usually is better just because
They're friends.
They're friends, and also see Rahu and Mercury in the D10 have a 10 relationship, and then Mercury moves 4 houses from Aquarius into Taurus, where it has a little bit more dignity. It's still there with Mars, but it's still kind of. I think Rahu Mercury is better, but we have to deal with. We have to do some remedy around Saturn here. Yeah, it's definitely a problem. Jupiter, I think will help when it goes into Capricorn in your case. At the moment, it's 12 houses away from the 10th. So Jupiter and Capricorn, even though I wouldn't say, I don't like to use the word debilitated. Jupiter and Capricorn is a good business person. So I think the Jupiter transit will help a lot. But again, we're also dealing with extreme situations with COVID in China and stuff like that. But let's see if we can figure out some solutions for you. Maybe we can do a sidebar sometime. Okay, Jessica, thank you. Let's look at one more. Anybody else? A lot of you are quiet, and I realize I've done a lot.
I have a question about my Barry. If you want to do mine,
yeah,
or if somebody else wants to. I have the sun is second from the Arudha lagna, which is not good for income, but it's also affecting the 11th house, which is a Scorpio, which should be good. So how can you interpret that?
Yeah, it's mixed. I mean, you often get these shades of gray, but it's also about when something's going to manifest too. So I mean, we're looking at the seeds in the chart, but we have to look at the fact that you're in
Jupiter Maharaja. It has been very good for me. I know that Jupiter is not good for Capricorn, but
it's good. Yeah, it's good. I mean, your Jupiter's in your 10th, and it's in we're looking at the D10 here. Jupiter's
in the 12th, nothing.
No, Jupiter in the 12th doesn't mean anything. Remember when we learned in the Varga class that we're more concerned how many houses Jupiter moves from the Rashi to the Varga chart, and so Jupiter moves two spaces, but it conjunct Saturn here, so it kind of pulls at it. But Saturn is the chart lord, at least both. So
I was listening to the video about Saturn in the 12th. It says that sometimes Saturn in the 12th is people that like to work hidden, quietly, away from people, and I'm like that. So
yeah, that, or they're not seen, or or they're kind of
can be a complete
doing service. I mean, you're doing a teaching profession, which is kind of a service profession, So that's good. But so the question is the best source of income for you should be
Rahu.
Okay, 11th from the Arudha is Rahu and Aquarius. So it could be high-tech, biotech, computing, imports, technology. So it could be that maybe combining that with the fact in your Jupiter period, maybe if you develop really high-quality curriculum for the new age, which is teaching online through Zoom, that that would really take off for you. That's what I would say about it. And you're in Jupiter Moon now. Jupiter Moon's fine because Moon moves 9 houses from. So you're fine. Jupiter Mars. it's a 9 relationship.
Mars is not a good planet for me, so.
Yeah, Mars is usually not a good planet for you. Mars is still moving in, okay, Jupiter, Mars. Okay. Mars is for Gotama here, so your Jupiter Mars period. So Jupiter Rahu is also fine. I mean, this whole Jupiter period looks fine for career. I mean, if you're going to get a change of career, it's going to be in Saturn. You know, Saturn just always wants to change everything anyway, and Saturn's in the 12th here. So, I mean, I think your career is stable until you go into your Saturn period, and then it, you know, then you have to kind of, you know, we have to, you know, rotate everything and see where you're at. Okay. Who else wants to be a volunteer? I'll go another 5 minutes.
Tony here, can you just do a reading on my chart?
Sure. Okay. So Tony, okay, Leo rising, and everybody else want to chime in. So to me, this chart seems rather powerful. Now the question is, you know, what cycle are you in now, and why is it not powerful the second? You know, we have to calculate your dasha differently, and this is for my advanced dasha class, but I'll just when the moon's in the 3rd house, we need to calculate it with in a different way, and it's called Uttama. And basically, we calculate it from the 3rd nakshatra from where your moon was when you were born. So you're currently in a Rahu period, which you're in Rahu Saturn, like Jessica. You're going this month you go into Rahu Mercury. Okay, so that's the first context that we want to know. And in Charadasha,
Congratulations.
you guys should talk. He's in Malaysia. Maybe you can start a business together.
How did you start Rahu? I mean, how was your Rahu Saturn? Barry's Rahu Saturn was fine, right?
My Rahu Saturn was anxious, but it wasn't easy.
Especially
it was
with
better.
your Saturn in 12th, but your Saturn is in rulership, so.
Yeah. Now, Tony's Rahu, we have to evaluate Tony's Rahu. Now, first of all,
in the 10th house, which is good.
We like it in the 10th house. It's in a sign of Venus. Venus is 2 houses away. That's good. Rahu's in the moon's nakshatra. The moon is the lord of the 12th house. So that's a little bit of that's the underlying energy that's not so great for Rahu, for the Rahu period. Rahu is conjunct Jupiter closely, closest planet to it. It's also close to Mercury. So Sun has Digbala here. Rahu is strong in the 10th. But
Rahu becomes the yoga karaka because it's there with the sun in the 10th house, just like Trump's. I'm wondering what happened 18 years ago when you had a Rahu return, because you're going to have another Rahu return here pretty soon.
Pretty soon, you know. So, Tony, I don't know anything about you. Are you contemplating a career change? Have things been challenging for you?
I started my business 18 years ago, almost.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I started.
Okay, so very good. So what we're pointing out is that when you have a Rahu return, sometimes you start thinking about, because Rahu governs, it's like a Saturn cycle. Usually you have a Saturn.
I'm actually moving forward to something different. I'm just not sure. Yeah.
So are you thinking you want to go to something different, but you're not sure? Okay, well that's good. And has the Rahu Saturn period been anxious and paranoid and overworking and stuff like that, or has it been?
Well, I've been working very hard, you know, from early age. So
okay, and
a lot of curveballs thrown at me in between. I think.
Okay, and you're currently in a Pisces period in Charadasha. You're in Pisces Scorpio. Jupiter. A lot of good things about it, and got the A9 connected to it. So what now in terms of your Arudha lagna, The 11 from the Arudha lagna is Mercury, and Mercury's 9 houses away. So we like planets. Remember, we said every is the Arudha lagna correct here?
I think it's Scorpio. I think.
Scorpio, and I believe that is correct because it's in the 10th house, and it can't be in the 10th house, so it goes to the 4th house. So, so the Arudha lagna is correct here. So Scorpio is your Arudha lagna. 11 from the Arudha lagna is Mercury, and so Mercury is in Libra with Jupiter, Sun, and Rahu, and so your income should come from Jupiter, Sun, and Rahu, and then Venus. So professionally, what are you doing? I'm just curious.
Professionally, I'm an accountant. I have my own firm. Yeah, I have my own firm.
You have your own
and
firm.
When I started off 18 years ago.
Okay.
I'm an auditor, actually. I'm a licensed auditor in Malaysia.
Okay. Okay. And you're getting tired of it? It's kind of boring now?
Yeah, I think it's about a lot of pressure in between.
Yeah.
A lot of changes in laws and compliance costs.
Okay.
Staffing problems.
Okay, and so can you all see, we said Mercury is one of the planets that's very connected to numbers and accounting, and it's very close to, you know, it's here in the, it's very powerful there in the 10th house.
Barry, would he be also, because like I saw 18 years ago, he had a career change, but being conjunct with Jupiter, could he go into teaching about accounting and numbers or have a, that kind of stuff, like a professor?
Yeah, there's a lot of influences going on here, and we'd have to actually, you've got the moon aspecting it too. So the question is, it's the cycle that he's running, and the dasha that he's running. So so the Pisces period runs until 2024, and so the 10th from Pisces is Sag, and Jupiter is 6 houses away. So Jupiter in the 6th kind of creates, so in a sense, there's this kind of, even though you have your own company, there's this kind of sense of everyday work drudgery going on with it, I suspect. And we'd have to look at the D10 chart to see what kind of changes are coming to. So
Can Rahu Mercury be about research?
I mean, I do read up a lot though. So,
Yeah, writing, reading, researching.
I do a lot of advisory services. So
I don't see a job change coming in Rahu Mercury because Mercury's in the 5th house here. Usually, if in the D10 chart, if you get career change, you're looking for the 3rd, the 6th, or the 8th or the 12th houses kind of happening. So this I'm just trying to think. Our Rahu Ketu conjunct. I mean, you're probably in a position where you could sell your business if you wanted to at some point.
I mean, that's one of the options.
Right. So we have to kind of deal with, larger issues also.
Should I be actually in a partnership with somebody else, or if there's an opportunity there?
I'm sorry, the question was, should you?
The question, if I want to expand it, so let's say I want to move it to the next level, should I be in a partnership with somebody, with another firm or another?
I'd have to think about that. In the Pisces period, my initial feeling is no, because you've got the Saturn-Mars opposition between the 1st and the 7th houses in your natal chart.
Right.
So it would create a lot of tension in partnerships and a lot of, even though Saturn has some dignity there, it has, you have the close Saturn-Mars opposition. I just find that partnerships are difficult for Leos in general, because they need to call their own shots, and when you have Saturn and Mars opposing each other, then there would be a lot of tension and frustration having a business partner, unless you kind of were able to kind of go to you sold it to somebody and you got money from them, and you didn't have to deal with them on a daily basis, and you trusted them enough that
drop everything and move on.
I mean, that could work, particularly because Saturn is in its own sign, and it's in Jupiter's nakshatra. And Jupiter's in the 9th. So business partnership is not out of the way. To me, the aspect between Mars and Saturn would just create a lot of tension and frustration. Leos like to call their own shots. So if you could walk away from your business and just get lots of money and not worry about what the other person's doing, then it could work. Yeah, you see that?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Barry, I have a question. You said he's running his Pisces period, and the only Gemini aspect to Pisces is the DK being Venus. I had a question whether he got married during the Pisces period, or if he's not, if he's going to get married in like Pisces
Libra or
Pisces Libra, or Pisces or
yeah, we
Pisces.
have to look at what was going on in the D9 chart. Now, Saturn in the 7th in the D9 chart, in Taurus. Rahu, again, always people are always wonderful if they want to volunteer at your case studies. Rahu, are you currently married, or do you want to get married?
No, I am married.
You are married.
I am married, yes.
Yeah. And we would
got married, I think, what, I'm mistaken, I was about 20 years ago.
Right.
21 years ago.
Right. And I think usually again, I don't know if you want to volunteer. Like I said, Saturn in its own sign is strong, and Jupiter's nakshatra, and Jupiter, so but usually Leos have trouble with marriage. Is your marriage smooth, or is it challenged?
You have to be patient again.
Yes, you have to be patient.
Very, very patient, yeah. You have to let the lady decide.
Saturn, and now for those of you who haven't taken the relationship course, and again, I just did jump. Saturn in the 7th has Digbala, so it knows how to wait out marriage. So Saturn in the 7th and it has dignity, is good. Now, sometimes you always think Saturn in the 7th, okay, not good, but Saturn in the 7th can create Digbala, and it means that you're patient in marriage. And so you've been married 21 years. That's strong. It is in Jupiter's nakshatra, and it's even though the Mars aspect can create frustration, sometimes it's patient. So I mean, if your marriage has lasted 21 years, your business partnership could be fine. But I just think it could be the Lord of the 7th in the D10 chart is debilitated in conjunct Saturn. So this is why business partnerships would be harder than marital relationships. Do you see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there will. I guess there will be a clash of culture.
Right. Okay, very good. So thank you for volunteering. But I just thank you for volunteering the information about your marriage. I think to me, Leos always have trouble with marriage, but with Saturn in the 7th, they stick it out, and because there's such dignity in its own sign, and Jupiter's nakshatra, it holds on, and it's learned over time. You also have Saturn in the 7th in the D9 chart here. See, that's in a friend sign of Taurus, and so again, it creates it knows how to get through life, get through marriage, and just stick it out. And like you said, be patient. Okay, thank you for sharing that. It's a good reminder for me, because I don't see it very often. Most people come to me with marriage problems, and I don't see Saturn in the 7th. And you have it twice here in the Rashi chart and in the Navamsha chart. So that's good. Okay, I've gone over. I've taught and you're probably all lost. I need some feedback from the people who have been quiet on how lost you are and what we need to do to kind of catch you up. We will continue with this material next week, but definitely spend a little bit more time, learning Jaimini astrology, so you know why I'm talking about, Jaimini aspects and stuff like that. You have to learn the Jaimini aspects, and then suddenly you get all in the Karakas, and then it's not that hard, but it takes time. It's a new language. Anybody feedback from anybody? You're sorry you took this class. This is the hardest. I really made a mistake putting this section first, because it's very, very advanced, and I sometimes I challenge myself to teach advanced things to get at the truth, but I realize that if you're feeling a little lost, the whole class will not be this hard. Okay, I promise.
I like practicing on charts. I don't know about other people. I can always read up on the cookbook, as you call it, beforehand, but I like the actual live practicing, because, people can point out the rights and wrongs of, what you're getting right, and, the case studies. I really like that personally.
Good. Leanne, how'd you do with the whole thing? I know it's a lot of advanced material. How are you doing with it?
A little lost. I think I just wrote a note saying it'd be great if you could have use your cursor and point out things, so I'm not feeling like where are you? Just made maybe a larger, colorful cursor, so you can show me what you're talking about, so I can at least
somebody can show me how to
find
change
out where
the
you're
cursor to a different. I didn't know you could change your color to another cursor. Yeah, I'd be love to know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And but yes. So I am a little lost, because when you're talking, you've got the Rashi chart up there, and then you're talking about the Arudha lagna, and
yeah.
I don't see that chart specifically, so that's where I'm like scrambling.
This is why actually one of the reasons I switched to South Indian, but the Arudha lagna is AL, yeah, and I can actually,
and then
you have to rotate the chart around the AL, and I'm so sorry I didn't I think I made that clear last week, but I may have not. And it's possible I can actually change the whole chart to Arudha lagna. So like we can actually I can do that.
That would be great. It just visually it'd make it faster. I'd be able to feel like I'm keeping pace with you a little bit.
Thank you, and I can do that. I have to just kind of like there's a setting for it, and I have to look it up. And thank you. It's important for me for you to certainly don't be afraid to ever ask me a question or tell me some need that you had. I'm just here to serve you, and if you're not getting what I'm talking about because there's some problem, then please let me know, and it's not an insult. I'm here to serve you, so just know that. Lavina, how'd you do? I know some of this is new for you. I know you're very good.
Yeah, I tried to get in. I don't know if you're seeing my messages in the chat, but I haven't been able to follow at all. I came to listen to you talk, not other people practice. So I'm a little bit upset that I tried to get in to be able to have my chart seen, but we looked at somebody else's chart that we'd already looked at earlier. And I'm sorry, I can't do this class. I feel like I can't follow it at all. I don't know anything that you guys are talking about. And you did say, go study, and you don't need to look at that other class first, but I feel like this is not where I can be, because I'm not ready for this. I don't get anything. And okay. I'm sorry, I've been sitting here really upset, and I should just write you privately, but this is not what I expected, because we looked at everybody else's charts. We looked at people we don't even know, and I didn't learn what to do with my chart. And that's why I signed up for the class.
Okay,
and
I
it
apologize.
just feels, and I know you know.
I do actually.
I can't class. I didn't come here to listen to other people talk over you, you know?
Okay, so thank you for your feedback. It's important. So let's have a sidebar, and let's make sure that you're happy. And I sometimes can't get to every chart in class, but my goal is usually to do that. When I did the case studies, it was because sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's easier to do famous people or case studies that have been done, and maybe I did too many of them and they took too long. I'm happy to, if you want to stay online, I'm happy to just spend a few minutes and look at your chart too. So it's very important for me to make people happy and to get feedback. And I'm so sorry that it was difficult. And this is a very difficult class that I started with. So thank you for your feedback. Anybody else? There's another man who left and I don't know where he is. Okay, so it's possible to I'll think about next week. Maybe I need to go to something that's easier and give the people who need to study catch up on Jaimini astrology. So I'm going to consider that. It does take a little time to kind of learn some of the rules about Jaimini astrology, and I will maybe change the order of some of the classes so we can pick up something that everybody can do and not be lost. And this was very advanced material. I don't know why I put it at the beginning because I don't know what I was thinking. Okay. Anybody else need to give me any feedback, because it's very important, and I'm not opposed to getting feedback. I'm just here to serve you, so please let me know how I can do a better job. You can send a private email.
Well, Barry, I think getting the Money Karma 1 will really help. It was a great course. I really learned a lot from it. I think a lot of the confusing points that being given here will be totally cleared if you go through the Money Karma 1.
Right, and some of the problem is I've started using a lot of Jaimini astrology, and some of you have been with me long enough that you know it, and it's very important for seeing things that you don't normally see. And if you're totally new to Jaimini astrology, it's just like it's really kind of brand new. But Lavinus, if you want to stay online, I will talk to you privately, and because I just want to make sure that we figure out what to do to support you. And I think we'll just end for everybody else. So next week, I'm going to consider moving up some of the lessons from later in the class, so people who are behind on Jaimini astrology can kind of catch up and learn some of the things. And we don't need Jaimini astrology for many of the other lessons. We just need it for this lesson. Most of the other lessons don't require Jaimini astrology, so I will consider doing that, so that will give time for people to learn more Jaimini astrology from my extra tapes. Okay, so Lavina, do you have time to stay, or do you want to talk later?
I'm sorry, Barry. I really didn't mean to say all that. It's just probably not a good idea to keep talking because I'm really uncomfortable, and I apologize.
Okay, no problem. So let's talk later in the week and figure out what we should do for you, and maybe there's some other way that we can support you, and if you need to do another class, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, it's a difficult time now. Okay, so I will see you next week, and I'll decide where we need to go next week, and to give some people time to catch up. Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye, Barry. Have a great.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you very much. Great class.
Thank you, Barry. This was a really good class. Thank you.